everyone was super welcoming, and everyone really um, just made me feel like I was part of something, even though I still haven't done any contribution to this project. So, first of all, thank you, thank everybody. So, I can introduce myself saying that I started coding since I was, I think, 9 years old, and then I subscribed to to computer science university. I'm still finishing it, by the way. During the whole time I worked, so I've been always working. My last job was at Amazon in Luxembourg as a software developer engineer, almost 2 years ago, I guess. And is basically there where I first noticed about infrastructure as code and building in general in the cloud, using AWS, Amazon Web Services. So uh, after that, now I'm currently working 24 hours a day at startups. I'm the CEO of mine. It's called deepsway.com. You can check it out later. I'll leave a link. And then I work with other people at other startups. So in general, I'm working a lot with the cloud, in particular AWS and Google Cloud provider services. So yeah, before hopping in and starting showing some few very basic projects and some thoughts I have about WinCloud, I'd like you to tell a little story about what I felt working at Amazon and later on when I first saw WinCloud, something that is, I guess, interesting to share. Maybe I can share the screens. If that's okay, entire screen share. Okay. So, oh, by the way, let's. I don't like it to be monodirectional. So if anyone has to say something or interrupt me, please do it so we can maybe share some thoughts and talk together. So the first day I worked at Amazon as a software developer, they immediately gave me a project that required to build a stack of resources serverless in AWS. And to do that, I decided with my onboarding buddy to build the project using AWS CDK. Okay. And as a complete newbie, all right, so someone that has never worked with cloud development or even hasn't never deployed something that has to deal with serverless stuff, I had no idea where to begin. Okay, so I basically had this project to do with AWS CDK and I had zero knowledge. All right, and the first thing I did was basically the need was to have a bucket, all right, an S3 bucket, and some Lambda function. And this Lambda had to read and write in that bucket, okay? So as a complete newbie, the first thing I did was in the CDK project, defining the bucket, defining the Lambda, and then let's say we have here, for those that are familiar with AWS, let's say we have here the handler, okay? So we have here the handler of the Lambda function. And the first thing I did was pointing of the object defined in the AWS CDK and using it here. So something like this, okay? Get file.txt, and then, okay, let's save it here, and then blah, 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 and use it, So of course, this doesn't work with AWS CDK, and in general, with the concept of infrastructure as code, this is not possible. And in fact, they let me know back at Amazon when I was working there that this is not the way you should do it. You should, first of all, define the infrastructure, and then you have the business logic that is using the resources defined in the infrastructure to operate together, But what is fascinating to me is that I had no idea. I was completely a newbie on this topic, and this seemed natural to me. Like this way of working, to me, seemed the natural way of doing things, And then later on, I learned that when you define the Lambda, you should you should have environment variables, and here you specify the bucket name. Okay, and from here you pick the bucket name, and you can operate using the SDK. Okay, but I think back in the days I always think that this should happen under the hood, but for the developer experience, this was really what looked to me natural. So basically having the infrastructure and the code working together rather than have them separated. And when I first saw WinCloud, I realized that I was not that wrong, because actually WinCloud is really closer than what I was expecting on rather than when we are talking about working with infrastructure and cloud development. So this is the main reason why I really like WinCloud, and I was really surprised when I first saw it, because this way of working is really, to me, it seems natural to me. All right, so just wanted to share this interesting topic I experienced when I was working at Amazon, and the reason I really like WinCloud and the project itself in general. All right, so yeah, okay. So now I think I just have 3 projects to show to you guys, but I don't really want to go deep in the code or showing how it's done or whatever. I just want to, I don't know, just share what worked for me and some thoughts I have about this WinCloud and WinLang in general. So let's just start the first one. Yeah, please.
Hey, Florian.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eyal. I've learned from Revital that, can you tell a little bit about this project? Are these projects in production? Are you building them for another companies? What exactly those projects are? Kind of what's the
Yeah.
overall environment?
Of course. So as I said earlier, I'm 24 hours occupied with startups, and if I could go back in time, but in 1 year in the future, I would use WinCloud for my startups. Okay. In fact, I'm considering into migrating everything once we are, we have enough services available. Okay, compatible with AWS at least. For those
You're
projects,
doing a CDK, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm most familiar with AWS CDK. I've been working since the last 2 years with that. So, of course, in the serverless world more than the rest. For those projects, it's just a way to experiment, and a way I used to bring back a friend of mine that has it's been like 10 years he's not coding. Okay, he has a very very bad experience in development in general, and I was able to bring him back into coding thanks to WinCloud. Okay, because he was used to have this weird concept of um, infrastructure is hard. The developing a server and connecting it to a website and having stuff, it's difficult. Okay, and this is actually true, but back in the days it was true. Now, thanks to Docker, thanks to cloud services, and potentially in the future, thanks to WinCloud, this will be very easy. I showed him how, the construct of WinCloud on how to build a server, a website, and he asked me, "Wait, is this building an NGX with a bucket and this and that?" And he was surprised, because just with one line you can build something that is incredible. Okay, so thanks to that, he actually did the third project I'm gonna show, and those 3 projects for now are nothing. Like, I've just code in localhost that are working, but maybe in a short future they can be deployed somewhere and be MVPs and see if anyone is finding some utilities with that. Being a startup guy, I love working with MVPs and validating ideas before building them. So So as I was saying, those 3 projects are just very basic projects working in localhost that hopefully will encourage someone working more. This is my end goal. So let's just spoiler those 3 projects. So the first one is a very basic website that is connecting with an API, a third-party API, listing all the Pokemons. Okay, and showing some pictures and details of that. Okay, so it's a very, very standard way of having something up and running. With a REST API integrating with a website, and that's it. It's built mainly with WinCloud, localhost, and Svelte, I guess it's named, the web framework. While the second one is kind of, I was trying to move from the serverless world into something else, and I tried to build a small WebSocket server showing some balls, paintball balls moving synchronized. So I'm gonna show that as well. And the third project, I think, is the one I like the most, because it was entirely made by the friend I was talking about. So the one that is a long time not working with tech frameworks and not coding in a while, and then thanks to WinCloud is able to build something and potentially deploy it. The third project is I'm gonna show it as well. Is basically a website that allows you to build a blog using Markdown and then generate a snippet, HTML snippet that you can embed in your website, and you will have this blog rendered. Okay, so this is the third project, and it's working thanks to WinCloud, buckets, and APIs, and stuff like this. Okay, without further ado, let's just jump in the first project, if there are no other questions or other stuff. Okay, so let me close this one and open that one. Okay, so I think this is the first. I really enjoy grouping resources like this. Okay, I was saying earlier, the fact that I can specify the resources needed and use them together with the code, it's something that I really like to do. Okay, and the fact that I could even group different resources gives me another edge of being more organized. So for this project itself, as you can see, I created this small Pokemon API resource that is basically containing an API gateway that allows me to get particular information about a Pokemon or list all of them. Okay, and we have this little website that is basically some Svelte application pointing to this API gateway and querying stuff and displaying it basically. Okay, one part I struggle a lot when I'm working with WinCloud is the fact that I'm not sure if it's still a thing, but we cannot set the port, the default port of the API gateway. Okay, so every time I have to run something and see if it's working, I need to make sure the port, the randomly picked port of the API gateway is the same used from the website. Otherwise, they could not communicate together, and this port changes quite quickly. Almost every time I refresh something or I save a file, this might change. So this is one thing I noticed, and I'm pretty sure it will be it will disappear soon in the future. So yeah, let's have a look at it. For example, I can run the Svelte up here. As you see now, we don't have any Pokemon because the port used of the API gateway is different than the one used from the website itself. So let's see what happens if I update it. Boom. So magically, we have all the list of Pokemons, and if we click on one of them, we get more details and other pictures. Okay. Again, this is just an example project, and I made other two, like this one, but the third one will definitely be deployed in AWS and made public for an MVP usage to see if it's actually solving a problem to someone. Okay, so it's interesting to see how the integration work, because here we have the Svelte application, but it's not really that interesting to me. It's just a front end. We could use anything else. The interesting part is here because we have an API gateway that is doing nothing else than a proxy gateway to the Poki API. Okay, so we have this base URL, and what we're doing is basically wrapping the APIs using our API gateway. So instead of from the front end calling directly Poki API, we are instead using our API gateway as a proxy. Okay, of course, this is just for an example purposes, So to be honest, I was able to build such a thing in just a few minutes. And doing it in the old way, using AWS CDK, that would mean having the infrastructure and then the code and then linking those two resources together. But here it seems much more natural to me because you have the API here and you can just specify what to do and define the code right exactly here. So yeah, just want to share this little thing with you guys. If you have any further question on anything related to this project or other that will show here, please go ahead and just interrupt me.
Florian,
Yeah.
Can you explain again the exact problem you had with the port? Because there's a bunch of problems surrounding the rotating port, and what was the problem you encountered?
Okay, so the problem is, I wouldn't say it's really a problem because once you deploy this, it would disappear. But for the localhost developer experience, I would love to, and I think there's already on the GitHub this issue. But imagine we have a port here where we are forcing the egress port of the API gateway to be 4201. Okay, in such way, I could go in the front end and say, you know what, the API base URL is this one. Okay, so in such way, we can just communicate from the front end and the API gateway using a default port. Okay, without this, it means that every time I save, and because I have my Wing execution in watch mode, every time I save, the port used from the API base URL, it's randomly picked, basically. So that means every time I need to test if it's working, I need to go here and make sure we are using the same port as the one displayed here in the console, and then I can go here and have the front end correctly communicating with the API gateway. Okay.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah. No problem. So only this one. Okay.
Hey.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I think Chris was raising his hand.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask, is your code on GitHub anywhere? It would be cool to share it with others. Or...
Yeah, sure. I do have it on GitHub, and I think I'm also trying to make a pull request on the official Wing Cloud examples repository to potentially have it there for everyone.
Awesome.
I can share in live the link if you're looking for it. I think it's this one. Yeah, Pokemon list. This one.
Florian,
Yeah.
regarding the port, have you tried to use the add file to the website and basically create a JSON file that points to the URL? Are you familiar with that?
Oh, that would work. Yeah, that would work. So you're saying no,
It's
wait,
actually
wait.
that's exactly one of the reasons we have that API. Is like you can go to the website and do website.add file, or even I think add JSON.
At JSON. Yeah, at JSON. I put the link.
Okay. Oh, wait.
And then just put the API URL there. I know that we have some issue with like resolving tokens in the simulator, so I'm not 100% sure it'll work, but that's the right quote unquote way to solve this issue, not to stabilize the port.
Of course, of course. Yeah, that would exactly work. Yeah. It's if I'm not wrong, this basically creates a JSON with the custom values that the front end can then
Read.
use. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
easy.
And when
Yeah.
you deploy it on the cloud, you'll get the URL of the API, right? Like you're gonna get the actual like resolved domain name of the API. And so you can deploy it in any environment. It'll just work out of the box, right? Like you don't have to like manually configure each environment.
Oh, wow. So is this a way to have a custom centralized configuration JSON where I can pick everything I need?
Yeah. It's basically a way to communicate between the website and the backend for dynamic, for stuff that's changing in the backend, right? So you can like actually like,
Yeah. Makes sense. Why should we have magic numbers, such a port that someone decided where we can use this? Yeah. Thank you. This
cool.
is exactly what I
Let
was.
us know if it's not working. And I think if you're up for it, maybe the documentation for the website resource, maybe just we can change it a little bit to explicitly add that part in the example, at the first example, so people are aware that it exists from day one, right? Like, so when they read the website, oh, cool, I can actually also communicate stuff like pre-flight state from the back end to the front end.
Yeah, I think that would be useful to have an example from A to Z. Usually, a website needs to communicate some way with the API gateway.
Yeah,
If it's not a static website, then yeah.
Yeah, at the minimum, it's the actual port. It's the actual URL, right? Like it's the base URL, so you can actually call the dynamic API, right? From the.
I agree. Nice.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So for the second project, if there's no other questions, I can go ahead. For the second project,
One, not a question,
Yeah.
but another thing to add on Elad's points, you can also add a file, like a JavaScript file, and then just move the variables around. You can create a dynamic JavaScript file if it makes more sense, because we know that in static website, reading from a JSON can be pretty challenging, and adding another JavaScript file is a bit easier.
Do we have that documented somewhere? Suf?
Yes, here, and no, not in examples or any other better place to give
Okay,
more.
so let's take a test to like add these things to that docs, because it definitely seems like.
And also there is the React website that you can use. That's the last thing, last suggestion.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I think it's not a big of a deal. Like having a web framework could work, just parsing a JSON. But yeah, if we can have, I think it's okay. I'll have a look at that. Thank you. Okay. If you have any other topics or things to say about what we're talking so far?
I have a non-related code question. What was the motivation to create Pokemon websites?
Okay. To be honest with you, no motivation at all. Like I just said, I just want to try this. When in the first 5 minutes, I was saying that the first day I went to working at Amazon, the first time I saw AWS CDK as a complete newbie, I tried to mix infrastructure and the handler of a Lambda together. And when they saw it, they basically told me, no, you can't do this. Why you are trying to access to a bucket inside a Lambda handler? You should not do that, And when I saw WinCloud and I saw you guys are doing exactly what I was trying to do in my as a newbie, as a complete, new person looking at infrastructure as code, I remember it and I said, okay, this is the way it should be naturally done. This should be natural. The way the developer experience should be is this. Why should I care of passing the address or the bucket name as an environment variable and making sure that it has the roles to read and write and then use it? Why should I do that? This could be automated. So when I saw WinCloud, I said, okay, let's try this and let's make sure it will be used by anyone, because I'm planning in the future to have DeepSway, my startup, working with backed with WinCloud. And this is also a not related topic, a good thing, because it means in a future, me as a startupper, I'm not linked to the cloud provider no more, because I could have all my servers of the startup in AWS and being ready to move from AWS to Google or vice versa. So I just think WinCloud makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I don't want to steal too much time to you guys. So let's move on the second project, and I want to talk about testing. So let me see if I can find it anywhere here. This one. Yeah. Multiplayer video game. Open terminal. All right. So this one, let's have it running in the console so we can see the diagram much better. Wing IT main. Boom. All right. So in this project, we have, in this small example, we have a server that, for those familiar with AWS, could be seen as an Elastic Container Service. So basically a Docker container. I guess under the hood in localhost is just a node process up and running. So an asynchronous function that is doing something and communicating with a log and a website. Okay. And what we have here is, let's show it in action first, and then I can show something about unit tests. Okay, so let's make sure this container auto starts. So we have it. Okay. And then I guess we can open the website. So what we have here, for those that don't know, is basically a small vanilla JS website with a canvas, and we are every frame just drawing a small circle. Okay, and I'm moving it with a keyboard right now. Okay, and the interesting part is what happens when we open more than one window. Okay, so we basically keep in sync those coordinates together using a one of those disappeared. Okay. We basically keep in sync the coordinates of those two circles with a broadcast WebSocket server, and this server is hosted using the Wing Cloud service. Okay, in the documentation you can have a look at it. It's basically just popping a process localhost that is holding the server, and then all those clients are communicating with that server to know the position of each one of them. And the website, of course, it's hosted again with a website construct of Winglang. So it was interesting to develop this because I have a background working with Unity and the game development, and I remember the pain of having a WebSocket server back in the days when the infrastructure was completely detached from the game. You have that thing that is called a server on one machine somewhere, and then you just pray to hoping that is up and running. Okay, I think Wing Cloud will have a way of making things easier again, even in this field. Thanks to cloud hosting, of course. So the website itself, you saw it. It's very basic. There's not much to say, especially about the front end. Is what every game should do is basically a canvas and printing stuff. Yeah, please.
Elad, are you raising your hand? No.
No.
Accidentally.
Okay, no problem. No issues. So the interesting part was that in order to obtain such thing, I had to use this external JavaScript way of importing stuff. And so just quickly, what we have here is, okay, the website for the front-end hosting. We are importing two functions, run WebSocket server and close WebSocket server. And we can do that thanks to this syntax. Then we have a lock. We will see later on why we need this. And finally, we have those functions executed in flight that take a port, and they're looking if we already have up and running server. Okay, this lock is basically telling me if we already have a server up and running or not. And then under here, we can basically run the server, spin the server up, incrementing the lock. So we will not have multiple servers for this example. And the same thing happens when we want to stop it. So we can stop it only if it's up and running. Okay. So yeah, pretty straightforward way of doing things. And finally, here we have the handler of this service that is picking a port and spinning up the WebSocket broadcast server. And once the container dies, we are making sure we close it. Okay, so that's it. We have this auto start true because we want it to be up and running immediately. So we want the container to spin up and run as soon as open the console. But ideally, we could think of creating some lobbies and have an API gateway that is going to spin the service, basically like this, something like this, only when two players join a lobby, for example. So I think it's in this way of thinking, having infrastructure with code together is much easier because we could just spin up different services as we need. For an example with the lobbies, so players join in, and then once they meet, they can run a service and have the WebSocket connection going on. So the one thing I was amazed of is our unit tests, because I think wait, where is it? Oh, it's not running. Yeah, it is. Okay. One thing I was amazed of are unit tests, because working with AWS CDK and having multiple stacks and having my own startup running on AWS, it gets hard for hard projects. It's hard, and the hardest part are making sure tests are actually testing something. We end up, at least I'm talking about myself, I end up always mocking so many services and just testing some logic that is not going to grant me that in production will work. Okay, and I think in this way, actually having the services run and stop and being able to actually check what will happen, it's another plus for WinCloud compared to what the standard way of doing things is. So let's see if the tests are running here. Yeah. So in this case, we have just a few tests that are checking the logic I did. So basically, if I start multiple times the servers, is going to we will only have one server up and running, and if we start it and then we stop it, we're going to have 0 left, and then just other dummy tests that I'm doing. For this case, I had a problem when the server needs to auto start. Okay, sorry, because in such way, just because the tests are using the same instance of the object, the fact that the server is already started is not going to grant me the order of things, and also things like starting and stopping are asynchronous functions. So I need to pray actually and hope that this asynchronous function will close the server and set the lock to 0 or 1 before my assert will kick in. Okay, so I noticed this. Not sure if there's another way of awaiting functions. For example, this one, utils close WebSocket server, in our JavaScript file is nothing else than a function that can potentially return a promise. So if we go here and we say return, okay, this thing will return a promised object of a void in this case. Not sure if there's a way of saying asynchronously wait for this to happen, or if it's close to how we should think doing things or whatever. But yeah, I was overall the experience was amazing. Having tests up and running here in such an easy way it's awesome. So this is my thought about WinGlang and WinCloud for this particular project. All right. Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, share your code. I'd love to look at it and see if there's. I'm sure there's a way to like address this issue for the asynchronous sync issue. I think Eyal also pointed out to some API we have in the. Anyway, we'll look at the code and see what we can do.
Sure. Thank you.
This is really great, man. That's so much fun to see this.
It's even funnier to do it because there's few things we should. The cognitive weight working with WinGlang is close to 0. You just need to do things. You don't need to think about how things should cooperate together. You just need to do that. So it's awesome, man. I really love this project, and I can't see the way it become bigger and bigger.
Cool. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
I have another question too. First, those two are really super cool projects, and they're really awesome. I wanted to ask, how did you learn WinGlang, and how did you know what is available and how to use whatever that is available.
Okay, next question. So coming from an infrastructure as code world and already having knowledge of AWS CDK and using it since the last few years, especially in the serverless world, I already have a mindset that allowed me to easily understand how to use WingLang. But aside of that, the documentation, I think it's great. The documentation basically, it's easy to find things, you know. So if you already know what you want to do and you come from AWS CDK, WingLang will be 10 times easier because you know what a queue is, you know what a bucket is used for. You have some background knowledge. Okay. The awesome part is for the next project I'm going to show you that even if you're not from, even if you don't have experience on AWS CDK, and even if you have no knowledge on infrastructure as code and serverless and cloud development, you can still build amazing stuff. And this is the third project that was made by a friend of mine, and I'm very proud of it because it's a long time he's not writing code in general, and he was able to build a website, a very basic website, of course, from zero, and that could potentially be deployed somewhere. Okay, so the interesting part is that WingLang seems to be so intuitive that if you have some knowledge, you can just build amazing stuff without having to learn anything deeper than what you should do. Okay, so let's just jump in on the third one. I think this one will be deployed actually, and maybe in the next few months. Don't look at the code because it's very badly written, and it's just an example, you know. But ideally, what we want here is having, and I'm gonna do it fast because I don't want to steal much of your time again. But ideally, what we want here is a need that actually in my startup I had, and is a way of building a blog, writing some markdown code. Okay, for example, hey, okay, you write here, hey, how are you, and you can just plug in links, checklists, quotes, links again, tables, images, whatever. And imagine you have your blog here, and you can just press this button, and it will create a snippet, an HTML snippet. And what this snippet is for is basically something that you can copy and plug in your website. Sorry. And you can plug in your website, and you could potentially see this block rendered in your website with a fancy style and whatever. So basically is a way of centralizing your blogs and having them rendered in your website. Okay, so every time the SEO specialist needs to change the title or whatever, they can just go here and press update, and the content of this blog will be saved in a bucket, and the next time someone opens the website, the content of this blog will be injected in the DOM of the HTML page you have, and basically that's it. So the interesting part is that we already, my friend again that had close to zero experience in coding and tech in general, was able to build this, was able to build such a MVP, and probably in the next month we'll deploy it and have a domain up and running. So the way it works is it's very easy. We have an API, and we have this. We're using an open source library here for having the blog. When you press create snippet, it basically converts this into an HTML and push it to the bucket. Okay, instead of multi-part, we're just pushing the content as a body, all right, as a field, as a string, and then we are going to parse it here, and basically that's it. So we're going to put inside the bucket both the HTML version and the plain TXT version of this, the Markdown version of this. So yeah. I can't have it up and running because there are some minor issues I noticed. But in general, I think this will be the first project I'll be officially deployed somewhere with the Wing Cloud, and I'm super proud of because I didn't do that. A friend of mine did it, so even though it has close to zero experience. So yeah, very interesting. This third project really blew my mind because having to do all of this with AWS from scratch should be a bit harder than this. So I'm really happy to see how Wing Cloud is letting cloud development accessible to anyone, even for those that don't have much experience on this. Yeah, that's it. So if you have any question, not particular now, even tomorrow, if it comes up anything to your mind, just ping me, send me a message, and I'm more than happy to have a virtual coffee with you guys and talk about anything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Florian. Chris, you want to?
Yeah, I guess with the remaining time, Marcio, did you want to present your next topic, or do you think there's enough time?
We have time to this?
We have about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you guys wanted, I can present, but I think we can postpone this. No.
Sure, if you'd like, yeah, we can move it, and you'll be first in the next meeting.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions or topics they want to bring up in the last few minutes? Uri.
Yeah, I had a question for Florian. You mentioned that you were considering migrating to Winglang later. And my question is whether from the top of your mind, what's your opinion, which services or resources are still missing in Winglang that you're looking to have?
Okay, that's a great question. So I think every startup should have the data. It should work from the data and then working around. Okay, even if I don't know any, like, let me find a stupid service. I can't come up because all AWS services are important, but let's pick a service that is not needed. Okay, even if that service is not implemented yet, I could still use Winglang. But everything that works around data, so for example, DynamoDB, and I know Table is already there, and something like to wrap the communication with Dynamo, so AppSync, for example, and potentially having it multi-region, easily multi-region. Once we have those two working great, I would be immediately ready to move. Okay, because this is the only thing we actually need. So the database and being able to communicate with it, potentially wrapping the APIs with GraphQL, so AppSync, and having some Lambda functions. But I mean, those are already there. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. So in general, I think with the speed the things are getting done, I would soon move everything there, because for startups in general, the most important thing is speed. Okay, there's no need to build something for months and then later on figuring out that it's not needed and we have to just dump it. It happened to me multiple times to destroy complete projects because they're not needed. The customer doesn't need that. So even if WingCloud offers a not perfect way of having things done, as soon as I have those done and can deploy them to AWS, I would move immediately, because for startup for the reality of startups, we rather need speed than best practices or whatever.
Awesome. So just the three things are AppSync, DynamoDB, kind of not table, just DynamoDB, and the last one was multi-region. Is that basically what you were saying?
Yeah, I would say that.
Great. And okay, cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for listening.
There's no other
Yeah.
questions. Then yeah, thanks everyone. I guess we can close things out.
Yeah, I'm glad I could make it. It was
Thank you.
amazing. Thank you, Florian.
Thank you, Florian.
Thanks so much
Thank you
for
so much.
presenting.
It's a pleasure, guys. I really think this is a big project. So I tried my best to help the community to get this, because I really think it's first of all helpful to me. So I really need this, you know. So yeah, that's it. All right, guys.
All right. Awesome to see everyone.
Bye bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.